celebrity historian Raffi Andonian is joining us as we flip the calendar towards 2026. From weather predictions to words of wisdom, he's breaking down the fascinating history of almanacs.
Yeah.
I bet that was not on your bingo card for today, but here we are, and welcome to 1 hour of the best of Northwest Arkansas.
As we look ahead to a brand new year, we took a step back into history with celebrity historian Raffi Andonian.
Yeah, from weather predictions to words of wisdom, Raffi joined us to break down the fascinating history of almanacs and why they've helped generations plan for what's ahead. Well, almanacs shaped how early Americans understood the world, but did Ben Franklin really invent them? Celebrity historian Raffi Andonian is back to explain what almanacs are and who else helped make them essential reading. Welcome back.
Hey, here I am. And there was a contemporary to Ben Franklin, actually, in the 1770s that was making an almanac right here in Arkansas, went all the way to the 1960s, and got eventually folded into this one right here that you're seeing, the Old Farmer's Almanac.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ben Franklin did.
There he is on the cover.
Did he invent them or no?
No,
I mean, he
did not invent them, although he's kind of iconically associated with it. That's why you see him on the cover, even though this is not his almanac, but we still associate it with Ben Franklin. Now, he was a printer, of course. He apprenticed with his older brother as a printer at age 12. And, you know, they printed pretty important things in Pennsylvania, of course, that's where he's at. Like, for example, the official colonial currency is something that they printed. The Pennsylvania Gazette is something that they printed. But almanacs, you know, he was not, they were all over the place in the 18th century. It's very popular. It's a very competitive industry. And printers would try to get them so that they can actually have more printing material to sell, right? Well, the competitors for Ben Franklin's print shop end up gobbling up all the almanacs, including one that he had, and it went to another company. And he says, all right, fine, then I'll put out my own almanac. So puts out his own almanac called Poll Richard's Almanac. And it ends up being incredibly successful. 10,000 copies a year that he sold for 25 years. Wow. To give you an idea of what that means in today's population adjustment, it would mean selling 5 million copies a year.
Oh, wow.
Not cumulatively. A year is what we're talking about. So that's how successful he was in putting out the almanac. Didn't invent it, but certainly was a very successful and popular one.
Yeah, and so people are picking these up, they're reading them, they're very popular as you've described, but my question is, what is an almanac?
I have no idea.
And what was in it at that time specifically? What were they reading?
Well, think about it as the 18th century internet. That's how I would think about it. So think about today, if you go on the internet, for us, some very common things are going to go on. What's the weather? What's the traffic? What's my local mayor doing? What's the president doing? And if you go to news sites, whether they're local or national, you're going to expect to see some standard things like that. You know, it's going to be funny if a news site has no weather, for example, right? So think about that standard format is what you would find in an almanac. So the almanacs are going to be standardized in the sense that there is different, you know, astronomy in there, for example, for the stars and the high tide. Why? So the sailor can refer to it to know where to go. How about having court dates in there? Why? Because the lawyer can refer to it to be able to know the cases, when they're going to bring cases. Weather patterns are going to be in there for the farmers to know what they're supposed to do. And there's also going to be some proverbs, of course, calendars, and there's going to be useful information. And in Ben Franklin's case, a nice bit of humor. You know, a lot of the funny, quippy kind of sayings that you see him kind of quoted for often were in his almanac. Now, one of the things that he did that is one of the funniest examples is he created his whole story. So remember I said it's a competitive industry, a whole bunch of almanacs out there. So one of his competitors that he's trying to go up against, Ben Franklin, in his first almanac for Poor Richards, and that's his pseudonym, by the way, Saunders. So in the 18th century, very common to write underneath a pseudonym, but eventually kind of connect that it's probably him. But in the first time he does it, he says this guy, one of the competition, in the almanac predicts he's going to die in this particular day. Well, the day comes by for that year, the guy doesn't die, and the guy says, hey, I'm still here, you know, you're wrong about this, you know, this is fake news, to use our term for it. And Ben Franklin keeps going with the joke. He says, oh, that's just a bunch of imposters that are pretending to be him. This guy's actually dead. He keeps the thing going for years. Several years later, the guy actually dies, and Ben Franklin says, it's nice to see that the imposters finally stopped doing the game. He runs the joke all the way through, believe it or not. So fake news was a thing on the internet back then, too. And he wasn't the only one. Jonathan Swift, famous contemporary of Ben Franklin, he's just a generation older, over in Great Britain, did something like that to one of his people as well. So this is a kind of a joke that happened in the 18th century.
That's crazy.
That's a wild
Doubling
joke.
down on the joke.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Man.
That's right.
Doubling down on the fake news. Well, thank you for joining us and filling us in on the fascinating history of almanacs in our country. And a lot of people are turning to those at the early stages of the year, right, to figure out what the weather patterns are going to be like for the year to come. And they're perfect time because they're coming out, right, with the 2026.
That's right. So it's a classic end of year, looking into the new year type of tradition that exists, you know, in America. It goes back really long time. It goes back centuries. When you have the first printing presses in the 15th century, almanacs are some of the first things to be printed.
Yeah.
Versions of almanacs existed even before printing, but certainly with printing, this is one of the first things. It was a guide a doctor would have on with them. They'd have, for example, the Zodiac Man, a very famous thing. You'll find it in this one as well. That helps medicine. So everybody, every professional is using it as a guide to the year beyond weather for common reference material. And that's why when printing press comes out for centuries is really popular. Still coming out today. There's a 2026 edition that you can get.
Thanks, Raffi.
Awesome. Thanks,
for joining us. Yeah, for sure. Stay with us. We've got more Good Day NWA coming up. If the almanac predicts it, right on the other side of this break.
I think it does. Yeah.